theyeshiva.net.
There's a word from the Kotzker Rebbe. I think it's brought in Siach Sarfei Kodesh. It says in Tehillim, it's actually, we say it in today's Shir Shal Yom. Lo yiyeh b'cha keil zar, v'lo yisishtacha v'lo keil necher, anochi Hashem Elokecha malchem b'eretz Mitzrayim, harchiv picha v'amaleim. Today's song of the day, Shir Shal Yom, Thursday. So the beginning of the pasuk is Lo yiyeh b'cha keil zar. What does Lo yiyeh b'cha keil zar mean? Literally it means there shouldn't be inside of you a strange god, a keil who is zara, a fremde god, an alien god, aveda zara. The Kotzker Rebbe says in Yiddish, La yiyeh b'cha keil zar. Der Eberster in dir soll nicht sein kein Fremder. The keil, Hashem inside of you shouldn't be a zar, shouldn't be a stranger. It's like you say, don't be a stranger in this house. Don't let Hashem be a stranger in your life. It could be Becha, but it could be zar, you know. A stranger, I don't know who it is. So what we're learning here in this Maimer is that it's not just there's a mitzvah, there's another mitzvah, there's another mitzvah, there's another mitzvah. There's a theology behind mitzvahs. There's a backdrop behind all the mitzvahs. All the mitzvahs and all of Torah in different forms and in different ways. But there's an underlying message, there's an underlying theology, there's an underlying rhythm or music behind them. And as the Balatanya put it, that Yisoid, his language was Yisoid, Tachlis, for Yisoid, Kol HaMitzvahs, Hu La'ahapa Chayesh La'ayin, Dahainu Sheyiyeh Bittul Hayesh. Every mitzvah, every shtickle Torah, in one form or another, it comes out sometimes in this detail or this, it's manifested in so many different ways, because you have 630 mitzvahs. The Torah itself is endless and covers themes from one extreme to another extreme, from agriculture to marriage, from purity and impurity, to everything else that you have in halacha and in Torah. Within the mitzvahs themselves, as he said, there's pratim, there's details and there's nuances and there's variables and there's different situations. But all of it, he says, the yisoid, he uses two words, tachlis. Tachlis is the purpose, the end goal, and the yisoid is the foundation of all of it, is to align, to integrate the yesh of the person with the ayin of the person and the ayin of the world. And this includes, of course includes everything else in life, because when a person is dealing with anything, let's say a person gets angry, so treft amal, it happens sometimes, A person gets angry, a person gets overwhelmed, a person gets frustrated, a person gets resentful, whatever it is a person is dealing with. The key is always, on one hand, it's a certain, person gets happy. Likkutei. The happiest man on earth, one of the happiest men on earth. Besides the Chasim. After the Chasim. So, there's the yesh of it. The yesh of it is the experience of it. And one of the most important things a person can do is lafe chayesh la'ayin, which means to be able at the very same moment that I can hold on to the yesh of it, to also be able to tune in and trace back everything in life to the ayin of the person. In other words, I'm never defined and completely stuck and therefore overwhelmed by this experience. This is a certain manifestation, something is going on, something I could learn from, something I have to deal with. Every situation, you have to know exactly what your calling is. You know, what could I do, what I can't do, what I could change, what I can't change, what it's coming from. But the key is, in all of that, is to be able to always have the ayin as the backdrop, as the foundation, as the yisoid of the person. So I'm never completely overwhelmed or startled or drowned. I don't drown in this particular expression and manifestation, because there is an I, an ani, which is oisius ayin. Ani oisius ayin. Sula mutzav artzav eroshim agi hashemayma. Ani oisius ayin. It's a Machzedek says in Derech Mitzvah I mentioned yesterday at the end of the shir. So the point is that, what's pshat ayin? Ayin is the infinity of the person. If a person could really recognize their own infinity, their own Ein Sof, everything is different. The challenge is that when I'm experiencing a particular emotion, I can get so overwhelmed by it. There's nothing else, Ani v'af siyoid. What's Ani v'af siyoid? There's nothing outside of the ani. But really, there's everything more than the ani. The whole ani is just one manifestation of ayin. And in the ayin, there's so much potential. In the ayin, there's infinity. In the ayin, there's tremendous energy. In the ayin, there's extraordinary possibility and hope and transformation. So it expresses itself in every nekuda in life. How you see yourself. Do you see ultimately only the particular yesh, or can you always tune in also to the ayin, and then you could make choices from a much more infinite and diverse and glorious and confident and powerful place. Verstandig? The Aveda is mahapech the ayin to yesh. The mitzvah is mahapech the yesh to ayin. What's every Aveda and what's an Aveda? It's the opposite, Well, I don't know what you're asking, somebody specific or? Yeah, in other words, in the ayin, there's much more to the person than just this moment's experience. There's infinity. It's Ein Sof, that's the ayin. Memala Kalalman and Soviv Kalalman aren't two separate things. Memala Kalalman is just the way Soviv is manifested and articulated in a particular nivra, in a particular moment, in a particular experience. But there's always the more. There's the ayin of the moment is you don't reduce it to just one tangible manifestation. It's just very easy for a person to get lost, a person to drown, for a person to get overwhelmed, and there's nothing else. There's this pashat nothing else, which is also understandable. Sometimes it's very intense, and you have to respect that too. You can't run away from that. So the point is not running away from it, or repressing it, or denying it, or lehitkachesh laza, to make believe it doesn't exist. Like we spoke in another shir, you have to hold the ayin in one hand and the yesh in the other hand. It's the ability to be able to observe that too and learn from it, but not to define yourself and reduce your whole metzius, your whole reality, to that moment, to that particular expression. It's always having that, like we spoke about the juggling, the juggling. To be able to retain a connection to your inner no-thingness, your inner ayin, in which you're not defined by a particular thing. There's much more, a lot more. Ein Sof, bligvul. And every mitzvah, he said, is a manifestation of this nekuda. That's the yesod, that's the tachlis. He gave the example of tefillin, echad, the example of karbonis, the example of tzedakah, and also limud Torah. B'chol nafshecha means not b'chol nafshecha only. A person is ready to sacrifice his body. They would have said b'chol gufcha, b'chol nafshecha is something deeper. A person is ready to let go of my definition of self as something separate. That's mesidus nefesh. It's a different type of mesidus nefesh. You're not giving away the guf, you're giving away the nefesh. To let go of my perception of self as something separate. The cessation of separateness. That's b'chol nafshecha. And then is v'dibar tabam, as we explained yesterday. Okay, so now we go to the next step. So after saying Vayitzavenu Hashem es kol hachukamei, Vayitzavenu Hashem lasses es kol hachukamei leyides Hashem. So he says, you see on the bottom, it's Behar, Mem Bais, column 2, all the way on the bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 lines from the bottom, Mem Bais, column 2. Now, what's the key here? The key to understand, the key to all of this is when you say the word yesh, it can have two interpretations. One is yesh, a person who's arrogant, narcissistic, haughty. Obviously that's yeshes, but that's not the yeshes that's being addressed here. It's b'derech mamela being addressed. But that's somebody who's suffering from complexes that could be very disturbing and can be very damaging. It's called gasas haruach, a bal gaiva, somebody who's extremely confrontational, can't be wrong, can't say I'm sorry, can't apologize, can't admit mistakes. Like somebody once told his wife, I never made a mistake in my life. She said, never? He said, yeah, once in 1971 I made a mistake. She said, what happened? He said, I thought I made a mistake. Think about that. So that was the mistake. So you have that type of yesh, but that's not really what's being addressed there. It's being addressed, but b'derech mamela. It's being addressed a different type of yesh. It's the ani that's separate from the ayin. What's being addressed is the yesh, the person doesn't realize their infinity. That's the yesh. It's a different type of yesh. The yesh here is the yesh at its core. The sense that you're not ayin, that you're yesh. Ayin means that a person is always rooted in a space of Ein Sof. The yesh here is the yesh that conceals that emes of Einoid Mulvadai. So may I experience myself as lonely. Sometimes the yesh here could be expressed as insecurity, not as arrogance. You understand? Sometimes yesh is experienced as a lot of very deep fear, as an inferiority complex, as completely no selfhood, no self-esteem. Why is that yesh? Fakert, you're the best ayin. No, you're not the best ayin. I'm lonely, I'm broken, I'm separate, I'm detached, I'm isolated in the world, which of course breeds a lot of, different types of behaviors, because when I'm broken, when I'm lonely, when I'm separate, so then it's painful and I need to compensate for that. I need to find some type of friend. So either you find a friend on a screen, or you find a fake friend, or you find a friend in a substance, but it's all because I need friendship, I need some fulfillment. So that's also a type of yesh. Here, yesh is not just an arrogant person, right? It's a much, much different inyan. Here, yesh means that you don't recognize your Ein Sof. You don't recognize that you're always part of a whole. What does bittul mean? Bittul da Hashem means that you're part of Hashem, that you're a manifestation of divinity. You're an ambassador of Ein Sof. That's what bittul means. And this yesh comes from the fact of the tzimtzum. Because of the tzimtzum, because not one tzimtzum, but many, many tzimtzumim that conceal the Oir Ein Sof. So it allows from soiviv to become mamala, even though mamala is soiviv, but it's experienced through mamala. And that's the idea of tzimtzum. We come back to the sugya of tzimtzum, shaloi kipshuta. The Balatanya taught, based on the teachings of the Arizal, and especially the Baal Shem Tov, that tzimtzum is shaloi kipshuta. What does it mean shaloi kipshuta? Like Pshuta means that the Oir Ein Sof was not nitzamtzem for real. It's just the way it's perceived. Mamala is also Ein Sof. Your particular manifestation at this moment is also infinity. It's just coming out in a tziyur of yesh, but the yesh is also ayin. There's no part of you that's not a reflection of Ein Sof. The question is, what's more b'hizgalus and what's less b'hizgalus? That's pshat tzimtzum shaloi kipshuta. Yeah, anybody understands what I'm saying? Huh? And that's a game changer. You understand why it's a game changer? Because it means that everything, every moment is essentially everything. Every moment is a gili of the Ein Sof. Even the tzimtzum is shaloi kipshuta. So it really means the only question is perception. How much I'm ready to perceive. And the nekuda of Torah and mitzvahs is to constantly align a person with this truth about yourself. You're a sulam mutzav arza. You're a ladder that stands on the earth, but v'roishoi magia hashamayma. The head of the ladder reaches heaven, and it's one ladder. It's not like there's interruption in the flow. It's one flow. That is the person. Much more than you ever imagine about yourself. Much more. Because all of my imagination about myself is also limited by my imagination. This is even more than you imagine of your own greatness is the truth of your greatness. Because it's not my own greatness in terms of ego. It's because my greatness is a manifestation of Hashem's oneness, Einoid Mulvada. And that's Pshat, Hashem Echad. Hashem Echad, Al Pi Chassidus, doesn't only mean there's one God. There's one God. Obviously, there's one God. There's no 100 gods. There's no 1,000 gods. It doesn't only mean Hashem Echad. Hashem is not made out of parts. He's not some material you make up. He made up of pieces. That's all emes Hashem Echad. The Rambam explains this, and the Rishonim explain it, etc. Hashem Echad, the Shalosh says, and the Baal Shem Tov, by the Baal Shem Tov, this became the Yesod HaYesodis, that Hashem Echad means Hashem is Echad. In other words, what's the pshat? You're connected to Hashem, you're connected to Achdus, Echad. It's not Hashem is one. Hashem is oneness. In other words, Hashem is oneness. The Baal Shem Tov said, Alts is Gott and Gott is Alts. What does it mean you're connected to Hashem? You're connected to a reality where everything is one. Einoid Muvadi, everything is Hashem. What do you mean everything is Hashem? I'm Hashem, I'm God. I'm going to start worshiping myself. Isn't that Avodah Zarah when you worship yourself? If you worship your Ani, then it's Avodah Zarah. If you're connected to your Ayin, then it's not Avodah Zarah. Ani Yosis Ayin. If you worship the Ani, it's not Avodah Zarah. Anoichi oimed bein Hashem ubein eichem. Anoichi oimed bein Hashem ubein eichem lahagid lechem es dvar Hashem. I think it says it even from the Baal Shem Tov. Moshe Rabbeinu says, Anoichi, I'm standing between you and Hashem to share with you the dvar Hashem. So there's a Chassidish Tarich, I think it's from the Baal Shem Tov. Anoichi oimed bein Hashem ubein eichem. It's the Anoichi, it's the sense of I, as a separate I, that stands in between you and Hashem. That's the only thing that stands. Without that concealment, the truth would be Nizgala. What's the truth? The truth is that you are a manifestation, you're a revelation, like the ray of the sun. The ray of the sun is the sun expressing itself. Intuitively, when a person wakes up in the morning, it's hard to experience this because, with all the emails, or whatever the emails were in the 1700s, the 1800s, it was a different type of tirde. Today it's a little more. It denies all of this. That's why the first words a Jew says is, Moida ani lefanecha. You bring back the ani lefanecha. That's the first thing. You align yourself with who you really are. And he said that's ultimately the Yesod and the Tachlis of Torah. And like we explained, that's why Hillel said that the whole Torah is love. Because all of love, all of real love is what? Is lafich hayesh layin. The greatest obstacle to love is when the yesh is separate from the ayin, and therefore I must live in insecurity. I can't let you in my life. I can't connect because it's dangerous to connect. Why is it dangerous to connect? Because, understand this, why is it dangerous to connect to somebody else? Nechemia, you want to answer? You wouldn't even understand. So I'll explain for those who understand. Why is it dangerous to connect to somebody? Because it's a coping mechanism. Because I have to be alone. Because if I let you into my life, what's going to happen? Either I'll get backstabbed, or I'll get front stabbed, or I'll get used, or I'll get exploited, or I'll get manipulated. Right? It's funny how some people don't know what I'm talking about, and some people know too well what I'm talking about. Baruch Hashem. Depends where you are in the ladder of Yesh and Ayin. But Kol Chadafim should delay. But when I could find the Ayin in myself, there's room for everybody. There's room, there's real space for another person. Again, on different levels, of course. There's a relationship with a spouse, there's a relationship with a stranger. Al Pitaita, there's different levels, but the Nekuda is, there's real space for somebody. I could really connect. Why can I really connect? Because we are connected. In Ayin, there's an organic connection. Because I'm not defined by any mitzias that separates me from you. Like it says in Tanya, that mitzad neshamas we're all one. Hagufim mecholakim. In the guf, I look at you, you're separate. But in the neshama, it's taka one. And even the guf, it's tzimtzum shaloi kipshuta. Even the guf. We're talking even the way it looks, the neshama is one. Now, when a person meditates on this, and a person lives this, and a person experiences this, it's a different type of life. If you always tune into your own ayin before you make decisions, before you talk to somebody, before you react to somebody, especially before you react to your children, you always tune in not to the yesh, but to the ayin. Or to put it differently, you see the yesh as a reflection of the ayin rather than separate. So then, I don't have to control you. Sometimes our response is, I'm going to control you. I'm going to manipulate. I'm going to make everything look good. It's all fear. I have to control. There's no real comfort. In yesh, it's very insecure. So I have to, make sure everything is good at the moment. You sometimes react to a situation, not from a place of connection, but from a place of of fear, of trying to control it, of not letting, the mouse come out of the box. So you shut the box hard. And we do that. We do that because we're in a place of katnos. I'm in a place of katnos, so I have to react that way. I'm not in a place of godless. Verstehst? Yeah? You with me? So this is all the way the person can understand it, the way the person can relate to it. Like he said, this is the yesod of Torah, this is the yesod of mitzvahs v'chol. So now, Kedarke B'Kodesh, the Alter Rebbe says, but we have to go one step further. And he says this is Azal Loshen, and you have to, it's such a sharp Loshen, so you shouldn't think he's trying to undermine everything he said till now. He's not trying to undermine. He's just trying to go further. Because it's going to be a sharp Lashon, so you could sometimes think, he's being mevatel everything he said. Not being mevatel, it's the next step. But you have to go to in ayin itself. There's ein soif, so there's one ayin and then there's a tiferet ayin, and it's both emes. It's not a stid. So he says, omnam, however, bittul ze einay amiti. This whole bittul that we're talking about, which is the yesod and tachlis, it's not emes. And again, I'm emphasizing, when he says it's not emes, he doesn't mean that everything he said is not emes. And you're talking about mitzvahs. What does he mean? How can you have a person really reach the state of ayin when ultimately the person is a yesh? He's being mevatel himself in a beautiful way, in an amazing way. But by definition, who's being mevatel himself? I'm being mevatel myself. So it's, the yesh is always stuck somewhere there. They say that when the train came out, they started to develop the train in 1800s. So in Chelim, they couldn't believe that there's such a metzias. So somebody decided he's going to disprove the Ganovim who are deceiving the world. They decided that in the front train there has to be a horse. And the horse is schlepping. You can't go without it. So there was a horse inside. Horsepower.
Yeah, the first train in Britain was a horse.
A physical horse. Right. We're talking about when the locomotive developed without a horse. So a whole night this representative of Chelim was looking for the horse. At Nishkefuna. He looked in every cabin, he looked in the engine, in the motor, he couldn't find the chimney. So he came back and he said that Ganev is such an expert at Bashafen as a kleine Pferdele, was mechanisch sein. There's a small little horse that he can't see, right? But he couldn't liberate himself from the perception as er stuck in Pferd. A Pferd darf sein. The question is how small it is, It's a microscopic horse. Huh? You're saying he was right. Horsepower. Okay. I can't pull myself up by my hair. Why can't I pull myself up by my hair? Right? Because I'm pulling myself up. So the Alter Rebbe says, as much as this is true, the person appreciates yesh and ayin. He says, Mikol makom yeshu, ela shemavatel esatzmai. A person could try to appreciate this, to sensitize themselves to this, to experience life by understanding that my true mitzias, my true reality is elikus, is godliness, true. But ultimately it's called bittul hayesh versus another expression in Likkutei, which is bittul b'mitzias. The one who's reaching this recognition is the very I, is the very yesh. It's the mamale that's trying to understand that there's an inyan of saiviv. So he says, sof kol sof, when he says Einei Amiti, doesn't mean it's a lie. He means, but it's not complete oneness. Ach mikol makayim, don't be at mavatal, who is sarusa de lasata. But this is necessary. This is what the person does. This is the arousal. Sarusa de lasata means the arousal from below. The sarusa is his oirus, the lasata from the person. Shayideze acher kachi yebchines ayin mamash. Afterwards, there can be taka ayin, not just bittul hayesh, which he says mikol makam yeshu, but it's taka ayin. What does this mean? I'll just give a little example. It's not a perfect mashal, but just a little illustration. Many years ago, I was invited to go to Arizona for a Shabbos. I went with my wife. It was more than 20 years ago. So I decided Sunday, we had some time, we'll go to the Grand Canyon. So I read up on it a little bit and I saw some pictures. So I wanted to know just what it is. So I thought I had an image of it, right? Because I saw what it looks like and I saw the various parts of it and I read about its history and what people do there. And then I remember came there and I parked and I went out and I saw it. I saw it. And I was like, I still remember like for 5-10 seconds, like, oh, I was startled, overwhelmed. Why? I already knew what it looks like. The answer, of course, is they say that Mark Twain once said when God created the Grand Canyon, he didn't create the adjectives with which to describe it. Because sometimes there's the way you appreciate something from your own experience, but then when it comes out at you, when you see it, it's not anymore based on my imagination and the way ich hab sich vorgestellt, but actually the reality comes out and you get mesmerized, you get lost in, what do we call lost in the experience. Lost in the experience is not something that comes from my initiation. It comes from the experience. It catches me off guard. You say, this was overwhelming. It could be overwhelming in a negative way. It could be overwhelming in a positive way. It's overwhelming. It caught me by surprise. It was something that shocked me. It didn't come from me. What I prepare for, that's all based on my tools. But that which comes out at me unexpected, that I couldn't prepare for. That takes me to a different place that I couldn't get. So this is a shtickle mashal. You have the bittul that comes through the person's avodah, through the person's understanding, through the person's experience. So Alter Rebbe says, that's not emes. Shari mikol makom yeshu. He's a yesh. Elamai mevatel es atzmai. It's the yesh that's being mevatel itself. But it's a sarusa de l'sata. The real bittul comes from above. There's a moment in life when there's a gilui there's a revelation from the real ayin that sets into a person, but that's completely beyond my experience. Because my experience of bittul is defined by my experience. It's defined by my tools. It's defined by my understanding, by my feeling, even though it's very deep. It's very powerful. And he says it's sarus l'sata. It's the preparation that you need to be able to allow Hashem, so to speak, to bring the real ayin into your life. But that's something that I can't create. I have to let go. I have to let go. I can't initiate it. It's like you can't initiate an epiphany. I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to think, and within the 10 minutes, I'm going to have, the cure to to some major problem, to global climate, to gun violence in America. An epiphany, by definition, it's called a barak hamavrik, like we speak about chachma, koyach ma, right? The lightning comes. You didn't. It's something that defines you. You don't define it. That's the difference of chachma and bina. In bina, you define it. In chachma, it defines you. Because if I define it, it's defined based on I. If it defines me, it's an ikud of emes. That's not something I could prepare for. It's a different inyan. It's a different type of bittul. It's a different experience. You can't control it. Because whatever I could control is by definition not ayin. It's the way I think about ayin. And we're talking here emes. He's not saying, we're not talking about a person who's a baldimian. He's saying emes. But it's just, sof kol sof einei amiti, shrai mikol makom yeshu, ela shemavatel es atzmai. So it's not a kleine ferd. There's always a little ferd. But it's a sarusa de l'sata. Of course it's a reality. It's based on it's called bittul hayesh. It's an authentic reality. So it's not. So that's the point. It's not we come. It's a sarusa de l'sata, but that's a keli. It's an opening for the real ayin, but that has to come from above. It's a hachana. It's a preparation. You can make preparations. But it's not something I could control, I can define, I can expect, I can manipulate, because that's what real ayin is. Real ayin means that einoid mulvadai. So if I'm preparing for it and I'm experiencing it, it's all beautiful stuff. It's a gavaldik inyan to be able to attach the yesh to the ayin, to be able to go out of mitzias to do all the insecurities, all the yeshes, all the ego on every level.
Yesh never disappeared.
In that state, in the first state. That's what he's saying. Of course. Of course. That's the emes. That place is the emes. No, it's a constant journey. Of course, it's a constant journey. Oh, very good. What does it look like? You want to know. What does that point look like? What's the relationship here? So he says, a very interesting word. Al derech yichud olam ha'atzilus. What's pshat yih b'chinas ayin mamash? Like you say, what's the relationship there? So I'm ayin mamash. And here it's the word mamash, because in the first level it's not mamash, because he's still a yesh. Here it's ayin mamash. What does it look like? So he says, Al derech yichud olam ha'atzilus bein sof baruch hu. It doesn't mean ayin mamish, you cease to be. Okay, boom. There's an explosion, boom, you're gone, you're finished. Bittul. Real, the best bittul, you're gone, you're done. Ayin mamish, you're mamish nothing. Mamish nothing, not, ich bin agarnished, right? You know the joke, yeah? Cook wer sagt is agarnished. Yom Kippur, yeah? The Rav went up, and the Chazan went up, and the Rosh Hashiva went up, and everybody said, ich bin agarnished. So Yankel, the quarter carrier, also went up, and he said, ich bin euch agarnished. Gib a cook wer sagt is agarnished, The chutzpah of this guy, he decided there's a garnish, but you have to be something. So l'chayda ayin mamish, nothing. He says that's not the word. Al derech yichud olam ha'atzilus be'ein sof baruch hu. In Kabbalah and Chassidus, it's known that the first world, the highest world, is called olam ha'atzilus. What's the oneness of the world of Atzilus with Ein Sof? The Iyu v'garmoyi chat. So the Lashon in Zoyar, the Kunei Zoyar, and the Hagdam is Iyu v'garmoyi chat. In Atzilus, he and his kalim, garmoyi are like garments, levushim. He and his kalim, his spheres are one. Sha'esa spheres and b'bchinas bitul amiti la'orein sof baruch hu amalubish b'hem. That the 10 spheres of Atzilus, which is Chachma, Bina, Das, Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes, Netzach, Chod, Yesod, Malchus, all the 10 spheres, are in a state of real bittul, real alignment with the Orein Sof, with the light of infinity, which flows through them, which is manifested in them. In other words, Atzilus, you don't say Atzilus is a world where there's no Chachma, there's no Chesed, there's no Gvura. No, there is. But the definition of the Sfiris, the meaning of the characteristics of Atzilus is not separateness, it's that the Ein Sof is manifested through them. It doesn't have a distinct identity. It's not that there's Chachma, there's Chesed, there's Gevura, and Elamah, you use it to serve Hashem. The very definition, what does it mean? Iyu v'garmoyi chad. The Lashon in Zohar is Iyu v'chayoyi chad, Iyu v'garmoyi chad. He and his chiyus are one, he and his kalim are one. What does it mean? The very definition of their identity is, it's a hechitimtza, the way the Ein Sof is expressed. So it's not separate spheres between themselves, and it's not separate from him, because they don't get stuck in identity. Their very mitzias is just a gilui of the Ein Sof. So in that sense, Chesed and Gvura could be completely one, because there's no ego in them, because it's just, this is the way Hashem is revealed through Chesed, this is the way Hashem is revealed through Gvura. And that's what a real relationship is. Again, to give an imperfect example, right? In a very good relationship between two friends, or say a marriage, doesn't mean people don't have personalities. We speak about ayin. What does ayin mean? I don't have a personality, you don't have a personality, so we're one. Two shmatas could connect. If I'm nothing and you're nothing, we could be together in one room. So what do? So I'm supposed to kill myself, and you kill yourself, and then there'll be achdus. The vort is something much deeper. You can have your personality, adarab, much stronger. In Atzilus, the chesed is much stronger than anywhere else, because it's divine. But the definition of the chesed is not ego. The definition of the gvura is not ego. The definition is one way through which Ein Sof expresses himself, because Ein Sof is colorless, so therefore it could be expressed through every color. So the color doesn't hijack the energy. The color is a channel for the energy. And when the color channel energy, my color and your color, we don't have to dilute ourselves or compromise to be able to be one, because what's felt in each it's another way in which the truth is being manifested. That's the idea of kol machloikas shi l'shem shamayim, soifel is kaim. It says in Pirkei Avos, in Perek Hey, that a machloikas that's l'shem shamayim will endure. Machloikas she'ein l'shem shamayim ain't soifel is kaim. So the Maharal has a Pirush on Pirkei Avos. It's called Derech Chaim. So Maharal says, I don't understand. You would say the other way around. A machlokes that's l'shem shamayim should fall apart. At some point, there should be peace. A machlokes she'eino l'shem shamayim, right? A machlokes she'eino l'shem shamayim. That's what Seifel Iskayim. He says, no, machlokes l'shem shamayim Seifel Iskayim. What does it mean? That machlokes are going to endure forever? He says, yeah, because if it's a machlokes l'shem shamayim, it's not a machlokes. If it's a machlokes l'shem, it's not a machlokes. Huh? Elu velu divrei Elokim Chaim. It's a machlokes. That's not a machlokes. We touch a machlokes strife. No, real machlokes l'shem shamayim means there's different ways in which the Ein Sof is manifested. So the two machlokes, and of course they'll both be mekayim. They're really one. You understand? That's what Elu ve'elu divrei Elokim Chaim. Both are the words of the living God. What do you mean both are the words? They're contradicting each other. That machlokes, he says, is Seifel Iskayim because it's really achtos. I'm just giving a mashal here to understand. He's describing Atzilus. That's ayin. That's what ayin mamash means. Ayin mamash doesn't mean that there's no svidus. Ayin mamash means that the gedder of the svida is nicht ich. The gedder of the svida is that it's a channel through which the Ein Sof comes out. So that is its definition. Its definition is ayin. It has a definition? No. It's the way the ayin comes out through this tziyur, or through that tziyur, or through that tziyur, through that form. But there's complete oneness with the source, and therefore complete oneness with each other. Yeah, so you have Bria, you have Yitzira, you have Asiya. Those are lower worlds. We'll see in a moment. Atzilus is considered the highest consciousness. It's not called Bria. Bria means a creation. Creation, we said, is Yesh Me'ayin, because that's the difference. In Bria begins Yesh. The Ramban says Bara means Yesh. Bara is Yesh Me'ayin. Yesh means something. In Atzilus, it's all Ayin. Ayin Mamish, that's his dugma for Ayin. What do you mean? Atzilus has everything that Bria has. No. In Atzilus, what's felt, what's experienced is that the infinity of Hashem is being manifested through this sphere, through that sphere. So the definition of the particular koyach and characteristic, what is its very definition? Its very definition is ayin. Ayin has parameters, ayin has a definition. That definition is only a channel to express one dimension of Ein Sof. Just like when you have a symphony, right? It's a symphony, it's one symphony. The conductor stands. Yeah, so you'll say, but there's 600 musicians. Each one has a separate personality. Each one has a different instrument. Each one has a different size. Each one has a different life story. Each one is sitting in a different place. But what does the conductor see? What does he see? He sees one symphony. That's why Taka, if he leaves, it could be chaos. Because everybody starts doing their own thing. But you say, but everybody is different. Every musical instrument is here to express the symphony. That's what it's here for. So it's not really separate. It's separate physically. This one is this one. If I can't, you have to have a cello, I have to have a violin. This one has a guitar. This one has a drum. This one has an accordion or whatever it is. But every one, it's here to manifest the singular symphony. Like the chiyus haneshama comes out in the body in so many different ways. The heart does its thing, and the kidneys and the pancreas, but it's one nekuda. It's not separate. Their very identity, the definition of their identity is not yesh, it's ayin. Not because they don't exist. Yeah, exactly, a channel. That it's very I is a channel. There's no I outside of a channel. Yeah, now the I becomes somewhat self-contained on many different levels. In Asiyah, there could be complete atheism. The I is completely divorced. In Bria, you're talking about a sacred world. It's the world of Malachim, the world of Neshamas. So there's no separateness, but there's an inyan of Yesh. So till now, he was talking about the bittul that's Shaykh till Bria. But then there's Ayin Mamish, which I can't initiate. That dugma for that is Atzilus. That's what the relationship looks like. So it's much deeper, the relationship. Because the I exists in a much deeper way. What makes it exist in such a deep way that it doesn't exist? It's only a channel and a conduit for the Eir Ein Sof. That is its gather. Thus hurt sich in the spheres of Atzilus. So the spheres of Atzilus, there's no sense of Yesh. It's all a sense of Ayin. Eides, Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes, and Netzach, and Hoid, Yesod, Malchus, all of these variables and definitions and descriptions. No. It's the Ein Sof that comes out in it. What's felt in chesed is the Ein Sof is flowing through me. The Gvura is, the Ein Sof is infinite, so it could come out in endless expressions, even in paradoxical expressions. So I don't hear the paradox. You like things practical. So let's say the next time you get into an argument with your spouse, it ever happens, huh? You can hear two things. If you were in Atzilus, what would you hear? You wouldn't hear somebody's arguing with me. You would hear the truth comes out in different ways. It's very different. It's actually a very good tip. For that you have to be secure. If you're traumatized, which means, what does it mean you're traumatized? Traumatized in language of Chassidus means the yesh has to be so big because it's so small. You understand what trauma is? The yesh has to be so big because it's so small. It's wounded. It's like a wounded lion. Whenever the yesh has to be so big, it's because it's tiny. It's very, very wounded. But if we can heal that, so then I don't hear paradox. I don't hear, oh, Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel, you're arguing with me again. That's not Divrei Elokim Chaim. Now, I'm not here to say that every argument between a husband and wife is Elu Velu Divrei Elokim Chaim. I'm not saying every husband is Beis Hillel and every wife is Beis Shammai. Amal is Azoy. But I'm trying to bring out the Likkutei, you understand? I can hear a different opinion, even in Gemara. The Mishnah says in Yavamas that Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, they argued about everything. And yet, they got married with each other. And they ate by each other's homes, and they were close friends, best friends. It wasn't politics, diplomacy, just for the shatchanim, it should look good. It was be'emes like that. How can it be be'emes like that? How? And this is the vart. The vart is that that's what the Maral is saying about Machloikas. The vart is, I could see it as you're conflicting with me, or I could see you're giving me an opportunity to learn about infinity. You understand? When your wife disagrees with you, she's giving you an opportunity to expand your horizon. So you should say, thank you. That's interesting. Now let me go meditate. Let me go think about this. Huh? Okay, now that example is at a much lower level, but you understand the Nekuda. The Nekuda is that in real ayin mamish, it's not like there's no. That's what he says, al derech olam ha'atzilus. In olam ha'atzilus you have everything. It's called a world. But it's not a world that's defined by yesh. It's a world defined by, how could it be? So it's not a world. So it's ois world. Hashem is not defined. The answer is, what makes it a olam is, it's the way Ein Sof comes out through tziyur, comes out through form. It says in Chassidus, the Rebbe says, what makes something beautiful? It's brought that Tiferes is always many colors, diversity coming together, right? One color is nice, but when you have a piece of art and it brings different colors together and light and shadows, like artists know how to do, there's something marvelous about it. You have a choir. One child singing is nice, but you have voices coming together. Beautiful choir, it creates a special pleasure. We spoke about a symphony, right? One musical instrument is beautiful, but you have all those musical instruments, the resonance, the synthesis, the hybrid, they're bringing it together. It creates a whole mosaic, a tapestry. The taruvas, that's what creates Tiferes. That's why Tiferes is not chesed, it's not gvura. It's a combination of chesed and gvura. The same is true, a beautiful physique, a beautiful body. Yefei Torah v'yefei Mara. It's the symmetry, right? The way the limbs and the organs interlock and interconnect with each other. It's the beautiful puzzle. Tiferes beauty comes from the synthesis of different iyam. So Alter Rebbe says, why? What's the vart? L'cha'ire, each one on its own is beautiful, right? Because if each one on its own, 0 times, 100 times 0 is 0. So each one on its own is beautiful. What happens when the voices come together that it creates a different level of beauty? So you could say, well, it's more voices. He says, that's not the vart. The vart is something else. Well, listen to this. It's very deep. The real beauty is the person is in awe from the beauty. He says, what really touches the person is ayin, pshittus, that which is beyond definition. But we can't appreciate that which is beyond definition because we have no way to access it. What's our way of accessing pshittus? When many diverse forces come together, that's how we access pshittus, and that's what beauty is. And that's what resonates so deeply in the soul. I don't have an access to Ein Sof. I can't see Ein Sof because my eyes are Sof. So how can my eyes see Ein Sof? How can my brain experience Ein Sof? If it's a brain, it's not Ein Sof. It's a brain. It's amazing, but it's not Ein Sof. So how can Ein Sof be experienced in our soul? The answer is when opposite forces come together as one. Because how can opposites come together? Through that which is undefined. Because if you're defined, this is you. And this is not you. So how can you become one with someone else or with something else? The answer is because who are you really? You're really ayin. So if you're really ayin, then my ayin and your ayin are one. We can come together. When we see people coming together, voices coming together, colors coming together, what we're feeling is pshittus. You're feeling ayin. That's what touches you. That's what resonates within you. We may not be able to articulate it that way because you have to have a deep havana in the nefesh adam. The Herst says the Reichkeit von Chassidus. Pshittus is undefined reality. I don't mean pshittus as simplicity. Pshittus is divested, mufshat, divested from any color and definition. If you're divested from any definition, then there's absolute unity. So pure pshittus, I don't have access to in language. What's the language of pshittus, the way it's translated into our psyche? Unity. When diverse people or forces come together, and that's where we say, wow, that's beautiful. What's the soul responding to? The soul is responding to the ayin that comes out. Ish v'isha zachu, shchina shruya b'neiim. The Gemara says in Sotah Daf Yud Zayin. Darash Rabbi Akiva. Ish v'isha zachu, shchina shruya b'neiim. Why? The shchina can't dwell in a man. The shchina can't dwell in a woman. The Gemara says that ish is yud eish and ish is hey eish, and together you have yud and hey shchina shruya b'neiim. And if not, God leaves and you have fire. Call the fire department. What's pshat? The pshat is ish v'isha zachu. A man and a woman are opposites. Are you still allowed to say that? It's not only a man and a woman. You yourself fight with yourself. I once heard from Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, the British chief rabbi. He once debated Amos Oz. You know, Amos Oz was, real left-wing Israeli. So they had a serious debate about Yiddishkeit. So before the debate started, Amos Oz says, Rabbi Sachs, I have to tell you before we begin, I'm going to disagree with everything you say. You know, only a Jew. I already know. In other words, I already disagree. You don't even have to say it. I see you, I know I'm going to disagree with you. You know, the Hostabar, the Hospeyes, the Hostayamuka. So he says before, I'm likely to disagree with everything you're going to say. But don't feel bad, because I also disagree with most things that I say. Okay. It wasn't bad. When you can make space for all the different pieces in you, you can make space for the different pieces in other people. Right? When I'm getting upset at a different opinion, it's because I didn't make space for the different opinion in me. So ish v'isha, it's opposites, a man and a woman. That's how Hashem made it. Right? But when they managed to come together, zachu, so zachu, Chassidus Taicha doesn't only mean they were zoicha. Zachu comes from the word zachos, edelkeit. Shem and zayis, zach, edelkeit, right? Tfilo zaka, pure, beautiful, refined, zach. Klar. Zachu, when they refine themselves and they go from the yesh to the ayin, shchina shruya b'neiim. So the ayin comes there. Wherever there's less ego, there's more ayin. Wherever there's more ayin, there's the shchina. So shchina shruya b'neiim. What's that b'neiim? What's b'neiim? B'toicham. B'beisam. B'neiim means in the space between them. The space I create for you. The space you create for me. What's that space? What's beinayim, between them? So if they're sitting on a couch in between, you should make a place for God. Yeah, that's the space. You have it also. V'nayadati l'chasham mibein shnei hakruvim. You had the two kruvim in Kodesh HaKadoshim. You had the male child. You had the female, right? Shnei kruvim. Keravia, two little children. The boy and the girl. And where does Hashem speak to Moshe Rabbeinu? Mibein shnei hakruvim. From between. Not from one or the other. Not from one or the other. Mibein. What's pshat mibein? From the space. Why the space? The space I create for you and the space you create for me, that's where ayin dwells. That comes out in the sinyan. So that's the word of Olam Hatzilus. This ayin mamish, that our bittul is hachana, is the ayin that's experienced, not through the negation of reality, through the cessation. So everything is ois. That's not the chiddush. That's ayin k'moshehu in its world. The chiddush here is, real bittul is, that the mitzvah, the very mitzvah of the yesh is not yesh. The very mitzvah, the gedder of the yesh is what? It's just a hechitimtza, to be megala, the Ein Sof, through this tziyur. So you're never stuck in this form. You're never stuck anywhere. That's what real bittul looks like. So your personality is fully there. It's even more powerful. In Atzilus, the Svidus are more powerful than Bria. It's not like it's a bunch of weak characters walking around over there. It's really powerful because it's divine. And because it's so powerful, because it's divine, therefore they're completely one, because it's divine. Okay, have a beautiful day. Tomorrow there'll be a shir, 7:45. Be'ezer Hashem. Friday morning. If you can't come, you can hear the replay, or you can hear it live also.
How do you explain being busy all day with the yesh?
Why are you busy all day with the yesh?
No, we are.
Listen, you spent 45 minutes not being busy with the yesh.
How do you integrate that?
How do you integrate it? This is the ganz Leben. You're going to meet people today, yeah? When you're in a space of ayin, it's a different type of meeting. You give love to people. You give hope to people. Right? He's a therapist. How does this change you as a therapist? It affects you? Huh? It affects you, yeah? Well, how you see your patient, Emes? Huh? It's very different. The guy comes in, tzahak, tzabrachen, tzashtochen. Yes, Shalom Bais says, his kids are not speaking to him. You could look at him and say, a nebach case, a loser should a loser, right? So what do you see? As that ayin. And you want to help the person connect to that. If you believe in them, they can believe in themselves. Okay, here's a businessman. He's not a therapist.
If you give your word a box.
Even the cubicle, you know those cubicles. You stay here. Don't think out of the box. You know those cubicles in the offices. Sometimes they're psychological.
There are few people allowed to think out of the box, like the top of the pyramid.
They get offices with windows. They have windows, yeah.
So, but the other ones is like rigid. So in the same startups also.
Fixed mindset versus growth mindset. You were Microsoft when you were living where? Over here? Seattle. How many years did you work for Microsoft? They say two people fail, those who don't have a plan and those who stick to the plan.
Rabbi, what do you say? What is Hechatimsa?
Hechatimsa is just yeshivish slang.
How do you use it here?
That it's chesed, gvura, tiferes, it's all one. Yeah, a hechatimsa means, in this case, it's just a method through which it's coming out. It's not, a hechatimsa means one example of many. Yeah, in other words, it's not like infinity is defined through yellow. But infinity could be expressed through yellow. Why not? You understand? It's not infinity is defined by yellow or orange or red or blue. But it could be defined through orange. But it could be expressed through orange. And it can also be expressed through blue. And when the orange and the blue come together, it means they recognize that they are channels of something larger than both of them. Without colors, yeah.
One example, but it doesn't define it.
Exactly. It doesn't confine it. Okay. Chassidus is geschmack.
The Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, they married each other.
B'Shamim b'Siluk. Exactly. Yeah.
There was a vengeance.
But you have to get rid of the trauma.
It was a joke.
I understand. Listen, if I'm very wounded, if my yesh is so wounded, and I can't breathe, it's going to be very hard for me. Because I can't let go. This is my coping mechanism. You know, I have to avoid you. I have to distance you.
But it seems like if Hashem put people together to have a tikkun, sometimes you say like why was this person put this and then the opposite?
You're right.
But it seems like they're both not. It's not opposites. They're both the same. Likkutei is the same.
Sometimes they call it a magotherapy, right? Sometimes there's certain things I have to work through. Generally in a marriage, the spouse manages to trigger a lot of things. And if I haven't worked out my own stuff, it's going to come out in the marriage more than in any other place. If I meet somebody once a week, I could be on my best behavior. When you're living with somebody, they get to you. So all my stuff that are not resolved are going to come out. So it's an opportunity for tremendous growth. Whatever that growth looks like, but in every situation, growth looks different. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's a good question. So you're saying, if brokenness is yesh, how is wholeness bittul? Because bittul is the ultimate wholeness. Bittul is the ultimate wholeness. What does real wholeness mean? Wholeness means that I'm part of the ultimate wholeness, of the true wholeness of Hashem. Einoid milvade, that's Hashem echad. Hashem equals oneness. In other words, to be connected to Hashem means you're connected to a reality that is completely one. It unifies the entire universe, unifies all of humanity, it unifies everything. So to be part of that wholeness means ultimate bittul. And that's the real wholeness. If I say my wholeness is, I don't need you, I don't need you, I don't need anybody. I'm just going to go into my house and I'm complete. It's the ultimate brokenness. Because I'm disconnected from my own reality.
Ze worden gewollt, das ist gesagt, wie kleiner der Jesch ist, darf man es größer machen.
Yeah.
Also der echte Jesch ist klein.
Yeah. When that's what trauma means. The yesh has to be so big because it's afraid.
How do you overcome that?
You have to heal it. Sometimes you have to release a lot of things. It's a process. First of all, you have to be aware of it, and then you have to heal it. But ayin means so the.
How you say it in words? Meaning you're broken.
So what do I do with my brokenness? I have to have coping mechanisms, and the first coping mechanism is I'll detach. I feel lonely. I feel misunderstood, and I shrivel up into my own little identity. The opposite of that is that I feel deeply connected. I could be connected to me. I could be connected to others. And the real connection is that you're part of a larger reality. You're part of the ultimate wholeness.
Gava is not the opposite of it, meaning if somebody says, I'm good.
That's what real self-confidence is. Real self-confidence means that my I is in a very powerful state. What makes it in a powerful state? Because it senses that it's part of Hashem's I. So it's really alive. I don't have to protect myself. I don't have to avoid. I don't have to run away. I don't have to be afraid.
Trying to integrate the language that we give in now, therapy, that to push into build into people that are really something and they're really deserving, really should be accepted themselves. Trying to bring that out a little bit.
That is real bittul. You remember what I said yesterday about bittul when milk falls into cholent? So you say the milk is bottle. What does it mean milk? It doesn't exist? Well, it's there. What's beside it's bottle? What's not there? You killed it? Faket. If you see it, you have to take it out. Of course it's there. But it's part of the meat. It's not separate. If you have a lot of milk pouring in, it's too loud. But now it's completely part of the meat. So you're actually eating cholent. What, you just drank milk? No, it's not milk, it's cholent. It's flesh. But halachically, it's bittul. So now let's spiritually, what's bittul? You say you're bottled to Hashem. What does it mean? Part of Hashem. So it's fakert and garnished. It's real yesh. It's the real yesh.
You could be a good person and still be bittul to Hashem.
Not still. That is goodness. Not still. Yeah, no. Bittul doesn't mean self-destruction. Bittul means self-elevation, self-promotion. I'm not just a little creature who's separate and alone and detached, trying to survive. Right? I'm a gilui of Hashem. I'm a manifestation of Hashem in this world. So a person's existence is actually infinite. You understand what I'm saying or not?
I understand.
You have to feel it.
This class is brought to you by theyeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.